This is Caleb Owens with the Insurance Experience. My guest today is David Hearing with Right Loss.
Hey, good to be here.
Hi, David. Welcome to the show. Thanks. So, David, I'm a big fan of yours. I've watched a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn and different shows that you've done. I really value
Well,
your
thank you so
opinion.
much.
Really
Very
look
nice.
forward to talking
Necessary,
with
but
you
nice.
today. We talked just a little bit before this, and I feel rather ignorant. I did not know that the difference between what you do and consulting, and I thought you were as a public adjuster. So please educate me in that. Estimator, large loss adjuster, before we dig into all
Here's in a
that.
nutshell. Right Loss Claim Rate Inc. is the largest provider of estimates in North America. We literally write estimates for the entire world. Last year, we wrote about $60 billion worth of line items. We work about 21 hours a day and have a huge staff that writes, and we support literally thousands of companies all over. And most people don't even know that we're writing behind so many of these other companies because we do it in their name, and it's what we do. And then I also own Rise Document Inc., where I spend most of my time today, where I do umpire work, appraisal work, and expert witness work. We just separate those because they're different functions. If you get down to it,
Sure.
Everybody wonders how I got here, and they often say, "Oh, are you a public adjuster?" And it's because they catch how I got here. And so you have to go back quite a few years. I had every intention of becoming a lawyer. I was actually working for a lawyer straight out of school, and I was gonna do this thing, gonna go to law school and just be a lawyer. And I walked in the lawyer's office that I was working for one day, and I said, all of you have a vitamin D deficiency. All of you like smoke or drink too much. You have various addictions. You all have like at least 3 wives that you've divorced so far. And I said, and you spend all your time arguing. And I said, I just don't think I'm going to be good at that. And the attorney said to me, he said, that's the smartest thing that's been said in this office in 30 years. And he said, what are you going to do? And I looked at him and I said, I have no idea. And he said, look, really smart, really nice guy. He said, look, let me see if I can help you. He says, tell me something in your life in the last years, doesn't matter when. He said, that lights you up. That when you think about it, you go, that's good. I'm proud of that, or I enjoyed that, or that challenged me. I said, something that just felt good at the end of it. And I said to him, when I was 16, I built a house. He said, excuse me? I said, yes, I built a house. It was a small house, but I built the house. And I said, I didn't do the electrical, but I did the plumbing.
Wow.
And I said, and I built it. And I said, I was proud of it because I wanted to understand how to do that. And I did it. Except I did forget to put the drain in underneath the toilet. And I did have to trench underneath the stupid slab. Like I didn't tell a soul about it for 15 years.
Right. To get it in there.
It was so embarrassing. But I said, I enjoyed doing that. That was cool. I don't want to build for a living, but that was cool. And he goes, I can't tell you what to do, but start there. And so I very shortly thereafter started doing some construction management. And I enjoyed it. And
wow.
I started managing some small commercial stuff. And I got a little name running where I was doing that work. And I get this call from this guy who owns a large mitigation firm and does nothing but large loss. And I never heard of the word loss before. Okay. And he said, I want you to come and I want you to build our construction arm. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, I don't understand. He goes, we go in and we mitigate places and we tear them up and we just leave it. And then they have to go get somebody else to put it back together. But if we could do the putback, then we would have a better operation and get them in and out faster. I'm like, okay. So we had a storm out in Texas, I think at that time. And I went out and I started meeting with these large loss adjusters. And it was like peas and carrots, man. I got them. I understood them. Because the thing was, if I could show them what we needed, if I could tell the story the right way where they could get it, it would usually just go really well. And like I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Hmm.
I didn't even think anybody fought with these people. And so I did that for a while. And obviously, I learned how to do Xactimate. Then my problem was I learned how to do Xactimate on really big structures instead of like nice normal houses and things like that. So I was a little deficient in the housing at that point. But all I did was I did that for a while. I built about a $60 million a year construction arm for this company and I managed it. I was quite literally a suitcase contractor because we just showed
Wow.
up with the suitcase, got the subs, got it done, and it was exciting. I enjoyed it. When I left that, part of the reason
Right.
I left it because I was getting a lot of calls from people to do what I was already doing. Hey, could you come estimate this? Hey, could you estimate this? Could
Huh.
you talk to this adjuster that's coming? Because we don't know what we don't know. And then I started getting
Hmm.
calls from these creatures called public adjusters. And I didn't know anything about what a public adjuster was. Zero. And I literally would get together with these guys and they would teach me all these things about the industry that I never knew. And I just continued to write. And the more I did this, the more I learned about the industry. And in fact, one of the public adjusters that I worked with signed me up as the general manager of his company. And the reason why he did that was he says, I want you to be able to
Wow.
talk to the insurance company on my behalf. He says, so you can better understand it. So I spent a couple of years, a decent part of most weeks, where I would literally call the insurance company for his claims. And this guy ran about 300 claims a year. And so I got a real kind of, I got an understanding of it from like, I had never understood the whole thing like you do with housing, with ALE. And so that was like it was an interesting beast because I'd never done that before. But suddenly I was talking to the carrier about, hey, we need to move these people into housing. Who do we deal with? And I had never understood that they get paid for contents right away. I never understood that in most places they have to send some money right up front, like within 30 days or 60 days of the uncontested scope. And I learned all the different characters that, from the desk adjuster to the claims examiner to all these various characters in the industry. And so I got an idea of the way something flowed through the industry. And so it wasn't long after I did that I literally just started getting enough of that work to where I started hiring people. And we just fast forward
Wow.
like 15 years and that turned into 120 people. And it just kept going. And today what we do at Write Loss Claim Right Inc. is we do about 10% of our work we actually go out in the field and assess. And about 90% of our work somebody just sends it in and they send us the details and then we write it up and send it back to them. But you'll never see it on our letterhead. It's just going out back out on our customer's letterhead. And that's why. And a lot of people told me, and I tell this to anybody who's building a business. A lot of people told me that there is no business that could provide estimation that could ever make it. That all these people had tried it and no one could get it done. And we actually did it. And the reason why we did it was that path I just told you about. I had seen contractors and adjusters and PAs and insurance company people and engineers. I'd seen all the different characters in the industry and I had a better understanding of them. And because of that, when I trained people initially, they got that when you're doing these various things, there's different factors in each of them. And I was really quite lucky too, because I mean, I think we lost one person this last year. And it just so happened that this one person was offered a job where he needed some experience that he really wanted, and he will be back. But this guy had worked for me for 10 years.
So you mean you've never lost employees like to another competitor or to another
we
industry?
we don't lose them because we just treat people really. First of all, we treat them really respectfully, and I'll tell you a big joke in our game. You'll love this. My mom used to say manners will get you everything in life. Okay. And so when you become like our senior estimator in our house, okay, where you handle everything complex, everything that's hard, all the real problems you handle, okay. The funniest thing is We give those people the right to take any work from the queue that they want. They literally have first pick. And what's hilarious is the people that say please and thank you to our employees are the people they always pick up. And so, quite literally, people with good manners get the cream of the crop writing their estimates. And I just think
Right.
it's hilarious because it's human nature. It's just human nature. And I just think
that's a
it's as
good
cool
thing,
as
you
it can
know?
be. And during this whole time when
Yeah.
as I was doing the estimation group, I was being tapped more to do appraisal work and umpire work and then expert work. And about 5 years ago, we just formalized that would be in a different organization, and that's in RiseDoc. And we have an appraisal staff and logistics staff, and we actually have WriteLoss as our client, not our client. We're a client of theirs, really. We actually get a lot of our work written with help from them.
So help
Yeah,
me out with this, because if I'm confused, other people would be as well.
I do.
RiseDoc and WriteLoss,
I
you
do.
own both of those companies, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And WriteLoss came first, and then
WriteLoss
appraisers. Is it
writes
appraisers? Is that
estimates.
correct?
It doesn't matter
I got it
what they
backwards.
do, even if they inspect it, at the end of the day, it's
Estimates.
always an
Okay.
estimate. No matter what we do, it's always an estimate. That is the job.
Got it. Okay.
And in
Okay.
Rise, we do appraisal,
Excellent.
umpire, and expert witness.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. And you broke off both these
It
That's
just
fascinating.
sometimes
It
if you
works out
silo
really good
things
for
a
you.
little better, like you've ever used Dropbox,
Right.
they do one thing. They save
Yeah,
stuff.
of course.
That's their job. They don't also make milkshakes. They actually do that thing. And I think that's really important because if you dilute what your main thing is, it usually hurts you. I know you do housing. You don't do housing and rice estimates for
Right.
roofs.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or like a roofing company or something else. It's when companies
Yeah,
get just confused and they don't know what they're
yeah.
doing. Yeah, GE did that back in the day. They did all kinds of different things. And I think eventually they figured out, hey, this is
Yeah, I knew a
bad.
guy in New Orleans once
We
that
got to
built
stop doing this.
a company, and he named it Directions Unlimited. And I thought, I don't think that's going to work out for you, buddy.
Okay. That's funny. Okay, wow, that's really interesting. I know that's a really interesting path as well. Most people don't get in the insurance industry, I wouldn't presume like that. I'm sure a lot of other people have different backgrounds, different things like that, but it's like literally you started out as a cook at McDonald's and now you own
It's
McDonald's. That's my best analogy with all that. You started from the bottom and you worked all the way up in really a totally different kind of industry, and now you understand all the different aspects of it. So whenever you put everything all together, every person's job and how they do it and how they think, that's what I
what we
understand from
say
all that.
at
That's
Right
really
Loss Claimer
fascinating.
Inc. is that our biggest asset is that we're basically empaths. Okay. If we write an estimate for 10 different companies, they're going to want them slightly 10 different ways because it's just preference stuff mostly.
Right.
But those preferences are terribly important to them. And just the ability to switch between that
Right.
and be able to do that for each one of those is just cool, because that's really is the hard part, because most people who ever have written an estimate will write an estimate the way they write it and will think somebody's weird if they want them to change it to the way they want it. And we just have taught people not to think that way. The other thing we did is, we have a joke about it, but it's true, is we load our people up like UPS trucks. And so they never know they're busy. It's normal. Okay. It's normal. And we do this thing.
Okay.
We've done this thing in all of my companies. And if you went to work for me tomorrow, in about 3 days, I would ask your boss, I would say, is Caleb comfortable? And if the answer was Caleb was comfortable, I would say, fix that. Because what we try to do for the first 6 months somebody's with us is literally make them uncomfortable every single day, so that they're pushing in a place that makes them scared or they don't understand. And after a while, it becomes a habit. And so they will naturally, after that point, they will just start naturally living there and always be improving. And so you don't have to really, that
Wow.
discomfort breeds really innovative people. And it's a hard master to do, but quite literally, That's what we do. And that's how I figured out how to get like really good employees, because they're like, I promise you in my email right now, somebody's written me an email that says, "Hey boss, I was thinking about this. I think we're going to do this and this because this is a little better than this and this."
So
And you
they
know what
think
I'm
for
going to say?
themselves as well. You're not
Whatever you
telling them
think.
what to do.
Because the truth of the matter is that I learned years ago that if somebody has a job and I literally empower them to do the job, and it's a job I used to do that I understand, they're going to be better at it than me. At the end of the day, they're going to be better than me because they're going to be able to focus on that job better than I ever did. About 7 years ago, I came into my office one morning and there was a note streaming across my computer. And it said, it was from one of our senior most estimators. And she said, "Call me when you get in." I called her and she said, now you'd also understand she works a different shift than I do. And she has access to my computer because I sometimes at that point in time had things that they needed at that time. And she said, "We got together and talked about it last night, and we think you would be better for us if you didn't write estimates anymore. So we removed Xactimate from your computer, and we backed up all your data to your drive. I just need you to confirm that all that's there, because such and such is coming by later to pick up that computer and give it to such and such so they can write estimates with it." And I said, "What?"
Wow.
I said, "I'm a little confused." And she said, "Look," she said, "you're always going to be really smart, but all we do is estimate. And she says, and we've got this. And you do all this other stuff that we don't do. So just let us do this."
Yeah.
And
right.
I can honestly tell you that was the kindest thing anybody ever did to fire me. Because
so essentially
I got
you
removed.
did. You got
That's
removed
right.
from that position.
And
yeah. Wow. But that's really cool. And you trust them. That's astonishing. How many bosses or CEOs would be like, "Yeah, you guys can ask
the
my
thing
computer.
is, what I
Just
found
go
is,
ahead."
and I'll tell this to like the people that do the direction of my companies, I say that if you make a decision, you can always say, "David said this is okay." I said, "Because he did." I said, "Even if I disagree with you, I'm not coming for you." I said, "I may talk to you about it at some point later, but I'm going to, even if it hurts me, I'm still going to back you up, because I can never take away your ability to lead when you have to lead. So you have to be empowered to do that." And I had a conversation years ago with someone who runs our logistics, and she called me up one day and she said, "I need to spend, I think it was $500 on blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Do you really think that as the director of logistics that you don't have the authority to spend $500 without talking about it?" She said, "I didn't know." Right. I'm like, "I'm not sure what your spending authority would be, but I'll let you know when you bang up against something that's dangerous or you're not doing something that's profitable. We'll talk about it. Do what you got to do." And it takes people about 2 years of doing that till they actually believe you. And then they'll do things like call you and tell you're wrong, which is nice too. I like people to tell me. I like people to challenge what I'm doing. We hired an in-house counsel. His name's Mitchell. And when I hired him years ago, he said, "Why are you hiring me for this estimation firm? I don't get it." And I said, "One, you're gonna tamp down the gunslinger side of me, because I tend to do things impulsively, and you're gonna help me with that." I said, "You're also going to deal with contracts, because I'm not terribly good at sending contracts out to people. We have lots and lots of customers we don't have contracts with. We just write." And the thing that Mitchell did is he literally changed so much about the way we work, because he made so much of it legal. It was so simple. We don't ever think of that window dressing as like really important. But the day somebody doesn't pay us,
it is.
We have a remedy. We have a remedy for that.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I take it you never went through that kind of thing. It never happened
I,
where
I,
you
I
just didn't
I
get
was
paid, or
really
they
lucky.
just completely
What
stiffed
we
you
did for a
on.
long time was we would hold stuff
Yeah.
hostage before we sent it to people, but you can't always do that.
Okay. No. But it's an interesting tactic.
I
Hey, if
can't
you
send this
don't
to
send me
you.
this payment, we're
Like,
not
you
going
can
to
have it
produce
right
for
away.
you.
Just
I guess
hit
you would
pay.
have leverage over them. That's funny. I really wanted to talk to you about and get your opinion on, because you're obviously very well educated and know a lot about the insurance industry. I honestly had no idea how much and how big you were in all of that. But tell me about this Florida State
Well,
Bill 2A.
the easiest way to say what that bill is, it is the largest insured takedown in history. Florida did Florida
Okay,
distinguished itself.
that's a large statement.
Okay. So if
Hmm.
we just go around the window dressing of it without getting into the nuts and bolts, just watch these few things. In that whole law, they didn't include a prompt payment statute. Okay. So that means
Okay.
that if they want to run you out 150 days on paying you for your claim, settled or not, they can do that.
I got to ask this because I honestly don't understand this, but this is what I understood. I understood that they have 60 days to settle a claim. So you're saying that they
No,
do
they
60
have
days,
60
but they don't necessarily
days
have to
with
pay out.
which
Is that
they
correct?
have 60 days, and I think they
Uh huh.
close that down to 30, but they have so many days to produce an estimate. No, it's not
Oh, I
settle it.
thought it was settle a claim. Okay,
There's
so
no
it
date they have to
produces an
settle it.
estimate.
Okay.
Okay.
So what you're doing is
Okay.
you've got, it's just crazy. Like, you're in Oklahoma, Caleb. Okay. In Oklahoma,
Correct.
they have some of the not greatest laws, but they have prompt payment. So the carrier can't just not pay you in an appropriate amount of time. Now, you can disagree with what they paid you, but they send and this is pretty normal for Florida. They send the CAT team in after a loss, and they write checks for in between $15,000 and $25,000, and then they've met their regulatory criteria.
Okay.
Then it's yeah, then it's a slow boat.
That's
Yeah.
nowhere
So
near
if
enough
I can
money to
just come
even
in and
do
say I
much
got
of
to
anything.
replace this drywall and that carpet and blah blah blah, and it's $14,000, then I could say we're done until the insured calls and says we need more, and then it doesn't start that clock again. It takes time. So that's first. The other thing they did was they made it where
That's
they
the
used to, which is crazy, but they could only raise your rates by 40% on an annualized basis. That's gone now.
okay.
They can raise it any amount they wish. Don't need state approval, nothing. Okay? So watch this.
Okay. I'm just wrapping my
So
head around
watch
this.
this.
That 40% sounds
1 month
insane,
after
but
they did that, my insurance company sent me a note that says, "Hey, review your new policy. It's going to start on 3/12." And it literally, I click a button and my $4,600 insurance bill turns into 11,900. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
it's just
What?
crazy.
It's
That's
just
really
pretty
insane.
staggering. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's on an annualized
That's on an
basis.
annual
But
basis, though.
they made
Just, I
this
mean,
really cool.
that,
They made this
you know,
really cool law within that law we were just talking
insane.
about, where if the insurance companies had a hard loss season, they can assess you 15% more than your policy cost. So they literally can send me an assessment for
Wow.
$100 in my case. No, it's more than that. Wow. Yeah, it's over $2,000. Yeah, they could do that. And then if you have Citizens, which is in Florida, which is the insurer of last resort, they can assess
Right.
you 25% more. Okay. And
Wow.
if you have Citizens
That's
policy,
insane.
you have to have flood coverage. That's flood coverage no matter where you are. I literally had a lady
You
call
have
me
to.
and say, I don't know why she called
Wow.
me, but she called me and said, "Hey,
Uh-huh.
I live on the 6th floor of this building in Miami, and I have citizens policy, and they're telling me they're not going to renew my policy unless I have flood coverage." She says, "I can't get anybody to write flood coverage on the 6th floor." She says, "When I talked to them about it, they said none of us would be here if we if you had to file a claim. We'd be all dead, the whole country."
They got a point, but it's just is some stupid stipulation within citizens policy that hey, you have to have flood insurance no matter what. They didn't really
Right.
think
And then
about a
and then
high
they
rise
then
up
they
on the
also made
20th
the law
floor.
where they did a pivot, okay? Used to it was the carrier's responsibility to assess the loss. And they pivoted that to say that it's it's the insured's
Okay.
responsibility to prove their loss. So that means that the carrier could say,
Okay.
"No, I'm not sending an engineer out. You buy one." No, I'm not set. You see what I'm saying? It's putting it squarely on the insured. At the same
Yeah.
time, within that same deal, they also made it where
Right.
the insurance company could send someone else out besides an adjuster to assess your claim. And so they would just send details up to the
Okay.
desk adjuster, and the desk adjuster would be basically the adjuster on your claim. But you'd never have a licensed adjuster stand on your property. Now, it won't happen universally, but it also set them up to where they can basically set up apps and whatnot where you can send pictures in of your damage and they can assess right over the phone. Okay. Do you have any idea
Okay.
what Miss Smith knows about the damage in her house? She knows next to nothing.
Exactly. Nobody would know. I shouldn't say nobody. You would probably know, but probably a mass majority, 99% of the population would have no
Right.
clue
Right.
what any
Just
of this
imagine
stuff would
this lady
cost.
who has this problem in her house and she knows that it smells musty in her house and it's making her a little sick, but she doesn't know that she's breathing stocky botrytis every day. And she doesn't know that she doesn't know that her house
Right.
is
She
about to
wouldn't.
be so sick that it's going to cost a fortune to fix. That it's that kind of thing that's going to happen because, and if you look at it, just look at the overarching thing I just told you. So basically, I can raise your rates out the roof. I can assess you more money. I can take away the adjuster who's supposed to be educated and seasoned to be able to adequately make the loss. And you don't basically I've basically just I've made it where your financial future to be adequately insured is dangerous. Look, 80%, 80% of the
Wow. That's a powerful statement. Wait, so I didn't see any of this in this bill, and maybe perhaps because it's buried in there. It's probably buried deep in there. I've looked up a different number of sources on this. I've seen the headline details what's in this
it,
bill, but all this stuff
it's
you're
there.
mentioning, I have
And
not
like
seen.
I'll give you go to any
It's there.
insurance company's
Huh.
website in Florida. Okay? Go look and they'll have a
Okay.
new department called self-assessment. And yeah, and it's going to get really
That's what
interesting
you're
because
talking
they're already starting to
self-assessment.
do
Okay.
it. And then they also made in that law, they also made it where you could do, if they gave you a discount, they could put in your policy to have binding arbitration. Okay.
Okay. Now I heard about this. Yeah. So
Yeah. So
you
I'm
can
sitting there
select
online and I
if
go,
you.
we'll just do arbitration. So we'll save 5% or whatever. Okay. Not realizing that if I have a problem, I have to hire an attorney. I have to hire somebody to assess my loss. I probably have to hire an engineer. I probably have to hire an IH. I'm going to have to do all that, and I'm going to have to pay arbitration fees. So it's so guess what? So guess what's going to
A
happen?
lot of people don't
Miss
even know
Smith's
that though.
never
They
going
don't
to
know.
arbitration because they're going to say, Miss Smith, it's going to cost you $30,000 to do this. Okay,
Right.
and then the other thing that they did was completely and utterly finished, reasonable attorney fees for attorneys. Okay. So for a long time in Florida, if the carrier didn't pay for your, they shorted you $25,000. If you turned around from there and you
Okay.
couldn't get them to pay it, you could run over to the attorney. He wouldn't charge you anything. He would charge reasonable attorney's fees, provided that he prevailed, and he would be able to get his fees directly from the carrier. So you had consumer protection where it wasn't going to cost you because of the carrier's bad behavior in this case. Okay. And so you could get your $22,000 you needed for whatever on your loss, right? Yes.
I don't have
But
to worry
now,
about the
since we don't
attorney
have attorney's fees, now we
coming
do
out of
it.
pocket for that.
All these attorneys will take 30%. They'll take it on contingency. So the problem with that is that Miss Smith comes in with her $25,000 problem, and nobody's going to take that case. Nobody. That's right. There's no money in it for them, so they're not going to take it. So if they're coming in with less than 150 grand, they're not getting paid. So in that case, if you're the carrier, you have an encouragement. Okay, it's an encouragement. It's not because you're evil. It's because the game's set for you. Okay. If you have a nuisance claim, which is usually a claim that's $20,000, $25,000, it's not a major claim. Well, they can go send you $300 because you're never going to go to an attorney for that claim. Nobody would take it. So what they did, so what I said was that Florida is,
so in the past,
Florida is anti-consumer. It's an anti-consumer move. So they went after the attorneys. And see, they claim that the attorneys are the problem. Okay. Okay.
I've heard that.
But I already told you that Florida has the ugly ducklings of insurance. Okay. You will notice something. If people file a claim and they are paid reasonably for that claim, they never go to a lawyer because nobody wants that hassle. It's only because they can't get what they're owed. And you have to take a pivot, okay? You have to take a pivot, and you got to think about it this way. You have to think about the insured. The insured, when we see them, they're in some form of peril, okay? But we think about the peril that hit them. But the peril that they're really dealing with is, my house is not going to be back before Christmas, and I'm not going to see my children. We're having to tap our retirement, and we're not going to be able to retire. We're not going to send Johnny to college because we can't pay for his housing because we're going to have to buy this new roof. I'm never going to quit working because even though my back's hurt, because I'm going to have to do this. Oh, wait a minute. We can go loan some money from like the SBA. But now I have a note to pay, and now I'm never retiring. They're in a place that's truly treacherous, and it's usually financial. Okay. And so what you've done is you've basically stacked the deck where they don't have the advocates that they want. And you have to understand, this is a long game here. Okay. They've been planning this for a while. Okay. Remember, they take hurricane deductibles. Hurricane deductibles were supposed to make everything go down 2, 3, 4, 5%. Didn't work. We're going to kill the AOB, the assignment of benefits, from a contract. Okay. And that's going to save.
Heard that.
That's going to save us right there. It's going to lower everything. That didn't work. We're going to take most of the attorney's fees away, and that's going to fix us. Nope. So we're going to take all the attorney's fees now, and that's going to fix us. Okay. And Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're just
So you
hitting
have to
things.
understand what they're. When I say that they're anti-consumer, I have an actual reason to say this. Okay, there are two advocates. Okay, there are two normal advocates for an insured: is an attorney and a public adjuster. Okay, they are quite literally beholden to the insured,
Right.
and they're their advocates. They are consumer protection. That's what they are. So you skewered the attorneys. So now you need to do something to the PAs to finish that. So what they're discussing right now, okay, is a 60-day right of rescission on the contract. So you could sign up, a public adjuster could sign
Okay.
up with you. And 60 days from now, after he's done all this work to move your claim along, say, nope, don't want you. Okay.
No,
Then the
don't
other
say
thing they're
this.
thinking about, and this one's really fun. This is really fun. They're thinking about changing the fee structure where for a named peril, if you sign the claim the first week, you get 1%. Second week, 2%. Third week, 3%, all the way to 10%. So you don't have to be a brain surgeon
Wow.
to recognize that what they're thinking about is they're trying to find a way to kill the attorney and kill the PA. But what they're doing, but
Take away all the
the
consumer
PA doesn't
advocates
have all
for
the tools that the attorney has. The attorneys can still do bad faith.
right.
But the PAs, they're walking a different walk here. If this were to happen to them, if they're successful in doing this, and there's no reason why a supermajority wouldn't do it. Listen to me very carefully. I called my senator, and I joke about it online, but I do pay them money so they'll answer my
Okay.
call. That is the truth. Okay? They won't answer my call otherwise. Okay? And it's a shame, but
Okay.
that's true. And I told my senator, I said, before we did this, I said, man, look, I said, in your district, you have the largest estimation company for insurance claims in North America. I said, it is a Florida based company. It pays Florida based taxes. It puts huge money into the economy. It does good work. And I said, and the founder of that company is telling you, whoa, something's wrong here. What you're doing is wrong. And he said to me point blank, and I'm not saying this to be political, but this is what he told me. He said, Governor DeSantis told us that if we don't back him on this, then he's coming for us. There's no way I can not vote for this.
What the hell? What is he? Has he got that much control over these guys? He's a governor.
Well,
He's not like a.
look at the districts. I mean, they literally cut a bunch of districts, and they literally cut, like over by Panama City, Florida, killed a district for a longstanding black senator.
Uh-huh.
His district's just gone. They killed the district, and they separated it
I
into
didn't
two
even know you
mostly
could do
white
that, but
districts. Okay,
this is like redistricting. This is
everybody does
gerrymandering,
gerrymandering, and it's wrong anytime anybody does
okay.
it. Okay, but we did it like
Right.
everything in Florida. We did it special. Okay, and so what I'm saying is that what I said to my guy, I said, yeah, I get that he wants you to do that. I said, but what I'm asking you to do is vote against it, and I know it's going to pass. I knew it was going to pass because they said in their internal documents that got shared with me that they weren't going to allow any more than 45 minutes worth of discussion about this or public comment. Okay. This is not normal government. Okay. So the thing is, I just said, don't do this. And he said, I'm going to do it. And I called him after it was all over. And I said, you do know now I'm going to have to come for you, right? And he says, what do you mean? I said, you got to understand, I live in a place that's full of some unsavory souls. Okay. I'm just being quite honest with you. It's my congressman uses the Proud Boys for security at his rallies. There are more people from January 6th in my hood than anywhere else in the country. Okay. Like we have some different folks where we live. And so I said to him, I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire somebody. I'm going to put him on my staff. I'm going to find me one unsavory guy that likes to talk about transsexuals and stuff like that. And just generally likes all those social craziness that you do. And I said, and I'm going to get him to replicate you in every way. And I said, and I'm going to pay him to knock on every door in your district for the next 2 years, all day, every day, and say, I agree with your senator and all this, but I will never screw you on your insurance. And he said to me, he said, you can't do that. No one's ever said that to me. I said, watch me. I said, if you guys can't pull back a bloody nub, you're never going to stop doing this. And it's true. And that, what I just told you about Florida in a nutshell, it's just that they went from a place that was very pro-consumer to a place that's very anti-consumer. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, it
sounds like it from what you've described.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they're scared of Ron DeSantis.
And the other thing is, for me, it's good for me. Because if you can't go to an attorney, you're probably going to need to go to appraisal. And I do appraisal. I do umpire work. And like, business is popping. No problem there. Okay. And so that's good for me. I'm good at operating in the tween. But it's still not good for the insured. And that's a broader issue. And like, I guess my point is, my heart just hurts for this one thing. Like, you cannot have a society without people on many different socioeconomic levels. If you make it where only people who are really upper middle class to upper class, and there's no true middle class, and there's no working poor, then what happens is, if those people get plucked out of society because they're not going to live in a place they can't afford, then what happens is, no matter what you touch, if you talk about going to get a hamburger, getting your yard mowed, getting your construction job done, no matter what you do.
Just like San Jose or some of these cities in California, where it costs that much money, you can't even afford to live there to make over $100,000 a year.
And that's essentially where we're going. And when you do that, when you have to pay the guy at McDonald's $30 an hour to serve burgers, your burgers aren't cheap.
They're definitely not cheap.
Like, I have to do something in my own company. I have to look at what my people are going to be paying in insurance. And I have to think about that as a metric on how I pay them.
Yeah, a lot of businesses, probably like yourself as well, if this continued, would look at relocating to another state. I don't want to put words in your mouth or thoughts in your, but it would be in the calculation that, wait a minute, why am I going to continue to operate in a state like this where it's so difficult for my employees to live here? Screw this.
Right. And look, I've actually talked to several states. We got a state in the Northeast that will pay to move me. Like, they like the idea. Like, it's just a little cold though. In there. And I don't think I could do that, but it's just a little cold. But no, I just think it's going to be an interesting time. And I think Florida is going to be a great experiment to watch later. I think I know this sounds cruel, but I'm kind of excited about it. Because, like, for example, you, Caleb, you put people in additional living expenses and housing, right? Let's say that Miss Smith, she stays there, she's got her policy, she gets her roof ripped off, and she has to move. She has to go into housing. And she has $60,000 worth of additional living expenses. And because housing is so expensive, because housing is so expensive, and it's going to get worse because you're going to have, because it's just going to be, because even if you go to that temporary place, they got to pay for the insurance too. So if all I'm doing, if my insurance goes, let's just say I was renting my house out, and let's say it got to $20,000 for my insurance, that means I'm going to have to raise my rates on my my tenant $1,800 a month or so. Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to get, so Miss Smith, where she probably would have been okay for 6 months before, she'll make it about 2.5 or 3.
No, we've seen exactly, this has already happened. We've had people called us crying. I've had to deal with some of them just crying because they're like, my house has been destroyed, still living in the house. Insurance company never came to do anything. Never actually put them into temporary housing. Never did. They sent them a check like you mentioned before. I forgot how much money it was. It wasn't enough. And then they have never heard from them again. Could never get through to the adjuster. She's just crying, asking us for support. And I'm like, we can't do anything unless we can get a hold of the adjuster. We have to do all these procedures to get everything approved. We have all these procedures for a reason. We're stuck in that as well. We can't even move forward with it. We couldn't help her out even if we wanted to. But you're absolutely right. Whenever you look at this, not from a numbers perspective, it's an actual human perspective. Like, these are real people, and you are literally destroying their lives by some of these acts, whether it's intentional or otherwise.
My own children. I have 2 adult children that live in Florida. So we parents always want the same thing. We'd like to have our kids close. We like to have family close. But how we do that?
That's quite normal.
Because when they go get a mortgage right now, that means the mortgage company has to look at their insurance price, okay? And then has to gauge what their insurance price is going to be over the next few years. Yeah, okay? So let's say that, and I've had this actually happen to people. So you qualify for the mortgage, but when they run your numbers and they put the insurance cost into it, then you don't qualify anymore because now you're out of the metric.
It would. Supposed to be 30% or less. Is that correct? Is that their metric? Something like that. Somewhere in that vicinity is what it's supposed to be. Once you exceed that number, then they're like, hey, wait a minute, you're a higher risk category. So you would really shut down before being able to.
I had an employee literally say to me,
at all.
I need to make $1,200 more a month so that I can buy a house. Think about just think about that. That's just the weirdest. I need to make. I'm like, you make plenty of money to buy a house. They're like, evidently not. They say I need $1,200 more. But let's say my kids show up to me and say, hey, Dad, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to be like, no, don't do that. Just don't do that here. Don't do that. That's terrible.
Just Florida.
Because look, let's say you got a 25-year-old kid. You add an extra $10,000 to them every year, and they're not saving anything. They're not upgrading their lives. They're not doing creature comfort things. It's a quality of life issue. Okay. Yeah. And so
you'd barely be able to survive.
It's just, look at you know what the average income is, household income in Florida is like $61,444. That's the average household income. Okay. You can break that down to a monthly salary, and you'll quickly realize that insurance cost is like 27% of their income.
That's unsustainable. So the only way you'd ever be able to get people to actually buy a house or stay in a house is more like California, because California has even higher than that in the sense of how much it costs per person. You'd have multi-families living together. Or have 2 or 3 different families, or
you would have
living together in one
house. The only people you'd have living in areas, and we've watched this, by the way, we've watched this happening right now, where people are coming down from wherever to live in Florida Freedom. This is Florida Freedom, by the way, just not for everybody, but they come down to live in Florida Freedom, and they look at that insurance cost, and they pay cash for the property.
That's not freedom.
And then they go self-insure the property. So if you are wealthy enough to do that, but once again, you're going to have to take this middle America guy here, this middle income person here that's making $60,000, $80,000 a year, and they're going to have to sell and move on, and somebody's going to come in and buy that outright so that they don't have that boat anchor.
Right.
But what percentage of people can do that? That's just cruel. I don't know.
It would certainly change the demographic of Florida.
Like, we have this community in Florida called it's in Middle Florida. It's with all of those old people.
No, you're not talking about Orlando or South Orlando then.
I'm losing it. What's the?
Okay.
Yeah, and they got like the thing over the
it's just south of
Orlando
then.
And everything.
Must be.
It's like the STD capital of Florida. Anyway, but it's a bunch of it's a retirement community.
Okay, it's not
Yeah,
Lakeland.
it's
It's not. It's even further
the
south than that. I
villages.
take it.
The villages. That's what it is. Yeah, yeah. So you
The
take the
villages.
villages.
Okay.
The villages has a 250,000 residents. They're all retirees.
Okay.
Okay. What happens when you have a 250,000 people that feel that stress? Now, a lot of those people probably own their house. Okay, not a lot, but a decent amount. But that could change the complexion of that entire 250,000 people. And if you do
Yeah,
nothing but
definitely.
load us up with, if you do nothing but load a community up with pure affluence, that might seem like a good idea, but it's a terrible idea because it removes the fabric of
Right.
society. And that's all I'm saying. And
Yeah, the worst case scenario would
but
be California. In some parts of California, not all the state of California is bad, but
it's
it is
untenable.
ungodly
It's
expensive,
untenable.
and it
You
is
can't you
just
can't
where
you can't live there because it's
yeah,
just untenable
exactly.
unless you pervert yourself in some way. Pervert yourself in
That's
some way, like
exactly
you were
what
saying,
Florida
like
would
co-locate
become.
yourself in housing with people much tighter than you would do otherwise. Yeah.
Yep. That's what they do there. That's the only way you could survive, and you would see some of that, I'm sure. But it would definitely be a different type of state because Florida was really great because it was cheap. It was a great state. It was free. It was nice weather, and it was not California. It was not crazy expensive. You could live near the
Right.
beach for a few $100,000. Yeah, that's what was great about Florida. And you literally would be changing that to the only analogy I can come up with is something someplace in California where your house is $1.8 million
Right.
and it's 4 miles from the beach. And the
And
insurance ungodly as well.
their insurance out there isn't that bad, only because they don't deal with the number of perils we do. They have catastrophic
Right.
perils sometimes, but they don't have like Texas and Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina. Oh yeah.
I was mainly focused on just the cost of living, like some of those cities, like San Francisco, San Jose. An average person making average income simply cannot live there. They can't. They have to be bussed in just to be able to work there. And you're just doing the math as a person. Wait a minute. How do you live off this much money if your house costs this much money and you make this much? This doesn't make sense. And like, oh, there's four of
It
us living in this
it,
house. Oh,
it's
okay.
crazy.
That
Back
sounds miserable.
probably before the mortgage debacle in 2008, 2007, 2008, they were doing crazy things in California, like getting people to get their dead grandmother and ride on her credit with your credit to get the big house. Or like
Wow.
if you could prove
Just to
that
be able to
your
get the house, they
inheritance
would
was like
use,
you're going
okay,
to get your
somebody else
parents'
like that.
place when they died and they were like of an age where they could die in
Wow.
reasonable times, they just include the value of that inheritance in your calculation. That's just freaky. That's freaky.
That's insane. That's, and it's reckless as well because you don't know what's going to happen with all that stuff. If they're using that to estimate the value that you could be able to prove,
Yeah.
that's for them as well.
There's one thing that should be exciting sometime soon in Florida. Okay. Sometime in the next couple of years, I have it on good authority that there's going to be an insurance company show up. And this insurance company is going to hire a bunch of credible people to assess claims. And we're going to do claims like it was 1985. Okay. And so what's going to happen? What's going to happen is Miss Smith's going to have a
Okay.
loss,
I'm here.
and she's going to get it signed in an adjuster. Might be a PA, might be an IA, but it's going to be somebody who's credible, who can write a solid estimate, who understands policy and understands a loss. And they're going to go see Miss Smith, and they're going to assess that loss. They're going to write up an estimate, and they're going to shoot that up to this insurance company. This insurance company is going to check it for policy conditions, pay the adjuster that looked at the property via ACH, and ACH the money to the insured of what's on the estimate. And guess what's not going to happen with that
Quickly,
company?
I take it.
Nobody's going to sue it. You know why? Because if Miss Smith
What's
needs
that?
more money, she's going to call that adjuster and say, hey, I had a problem with my decking and I need you to come look at it. And that adjuster is going to go say, yes, they need that, or no, they don't need that, and boom. And at some point, I've learned this in all things, okay? You can do disruptive things that change the world. Okay. When
Sounds
about
like it.
8 years ago, I give people in my shop, I'll pay them $500 if they can make me spend money on technology. Okay. Because it's hard to get me
Okay.
to do it.
That's funny.
So I had this guy who's really smart
Okay.
that works for me. He sends it over and he says, "Boss, I'm sorry, but you're going to need to send me $500 and this is going to be expensive." And he showed me the Matterport camera and the 3D technology that they use for real estate. And so I bought 7 of those cameras
Okay.
and we did a few things to make them a little bit better just for our industry because we're not always in good light. And we deployed those in the insurance game before anybody really had done it. And so we could start by we started freezing a moment in time. Okay. And so you walked into a loss and you could literally freeze it. If they did repairs later, if it got worse later, you'd know it. If you forgot the crown molding in the great room, you could go look and see if it was. And it also lets you measure. And if you didn't measure the cabinets, you could measure it right there on their app. And so we did that.
Wow.
And a bunch of insurance people said, "That's crazy. We'll never do that." And I'd bet you my bottom dollar that probably upwards of 40% of all the people in the insurance game, period, use some form of that technology today to do their work and do it better. And that was disruptive. And we like doing it. That's disruptive. And like in appraisal, we decided a while back that we commonly don't know if windows are damaged or not. It's like conjecture. Okay. Because I can look at a window and I'm really good with windows, but I can look at a window and if it doesn't have like ingested or missing gaskets, if it shows nothing physical that shows me that window was damaged, there's no way I can ask to replace it. Now there's sometimes whenever like we know there was enough water around it that you'd probably get there, but it ends up on this cusp a lot of times. So what we did was we spent a boatload of money and we got window testing systems. And so we test them through an automated testing system. So we don't control it. A computer controls it. A computer generates a report.
Okay.
Whatever the report says is what we ask for. And I'd bet you my bottom dollar that sometime in the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to stop doing conjecture on windows and we're going to start doing this because it means you're only asking for what's damaged.
Or
because
testing.
If you can't stay within reasonable and appropriate, you're not doing your job right. Everybody thinks that this whole game is like some kind of gunslinger's game, but it's not. It's just a science project. That's all it is. It's just, is it really damaged? Is it direct physical damage? What do you do to repair it? It's just science. That's it. And the problem we have with the insurance companies today, and look, I work with a lot of insurance companies that are good people that have filled them all the way through. I work with insurance adjusters every day of my life. But the problem with them right now is that they just have gone after everybody. And nobody even recognizes this just yet. But remember I told you a few minutes ago that they made it where they could send someone else to the property to assess it? Okay?
Yeah, that seems
crazy. What they actually did was they're trying to get out of the IA cost. Because remember, the fee that the IA normally gets is 3%, okay? Now he may share it with his TPA, but 3% of whatever he writes. Okay? So if they could get somebody to go assess that for $700, they lower their cost.
But on the same hand, like you're pointing out, if they are not professional, if they don't know what they're doing, they're going to go off and write some kind of screwy estimate. Yeah, $500, $6,000, and really it costs
The other
math.
thing
Really
is,
get it
is
correct.
you could control them much easier if they weren't independent adjusters that were licensed. So if you just got, say you
Okay.
got a company, say you hired my company to do inspections, we could do it. We could probably do it really well. But like I have a rule inside of our estimation firm. If anybody gives us more than 20% of our work in any month, it's an emergency. Because if you have 20% of your
Because
business
you want to
coming
be more
from
diversified than that.
one group, it starts a process where you can sell your morals. Because like someone looks at me and says, we're going to stop giving you business unless you do X. And you go, you're just like, I don't want to have to fire all these really good people.
Hostage, essentially.
And then suddenly you do something that you step down a slippery slope you can't come back from. And yes,
A lot of people do that because just like what you're stating, that they get held hostage. It's not that they want to do something bad,
I get
per
it.
se. It's
you want to
just
survive.
that
I get it. I asked an appraiser on a claim that I was umpiring the other day. I said, you agree with every single thing in your opposing's estimate? He says, yeah, I do. And I said, yet you wrote half of what he wrote. And he goes, yeah, I just can't. He says, yeah, I just can't turn that in, man.
really.
I appreciated it.
So he knew
what
was going on. Yeah.
He told the truth. He said, this is bad for me if I do this. So I'm going to put it on you guys to carry the weight here. But most of them would never be that honest because it's embarrassing. I get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the appraiser on the other side that's working for the insured will be walking the game, and somebody will say, hey man, you got to get $200,000 for this. And when that appraiser's sitting there at 120 and going, how am I going to get there? Rich Corinthian leather. He starts making all kind of stuff up.
So it's on both sides.
I did a video actually yesterday where I talked about this. Is if you wrote, we had a file, and it's an actual file. It started at $10,000 from the carrier. Okay. It settled without an umpire, so it settled at $85,004. Okay. Now, the public adjuster estimate on the insured side was $240,000. The insurance company was $10,000.
That's insane.
So there's only, both of them were heinously wrong. Like you would call that fraudulent. You would call it fraudulent on one end and you call it fraudulent on the other. So my point was, you're an insurance company, so you call out these other people. And the other people call out the carrier for their thing, but the real thing they do is they need to look at them at the same time. It would be the equivalent to somebody calling you up and saying, Caleb, we're only going to pay you $1,500 per month for anywhere you can put people. Yeah, and you'd be like, yeah, I can't do that. But at the same time, it would be just like if you told everybody that when it costs you $7,000, you charge 14. Then, but you see what I'm saying? It's both immoral on both ends. I've seen both sides of that with. Yep. So the trick is just to be the weirdo in the industry and just walk without weird motivation and walk where you can actually get things done. And
and you can understand why that's so rare, because so many people are conflicted because of other interests that they have. Sometimes it's nothing to do with them, that they're being strings behind them are pulling them and making them move the way they want to do. But just to assess everything you said and wrap everything up, the SB2A would be the reason behind the sky high lawsuits in Florida. Because I've heard the statistic that it's something like 78 or 79% of the total lawsuits in the country come out of Florida, with only 7% of the population. So that would be because of the insurance carrier not paying their dues, not paying a fair assessment of what they should be paying, and that they're being sued because of that.
Just remember this. Let's say that you're an attorney.
Yeah.
You have an imperative to walk into any process you walk into with an actual estimate for the true cost of the loss. Otherwise, you're going to get your pants pulled down in public. It's not going to be no fun. Okay. So, like, I get hired every day to literally go look at something and actually say, this is what it costs to fix. And I have to go through it really detailed because it's going to court.
Right.
And I get to see why they are going to court always. And the thing is, in Florida, you need to remember this. You should look this up. This will be fun for you. There are lots and lots of lawsuits, but there aren't a lot of lawsuits that go to court. So you go to an attorney, and an attorney usually will settle that, but will only settle it after the defense counsel that's working for the carrier has run up his fees. Keep in mind, it's the defense fees that are killing them. It's not the plaintiff fees that are killing them. So my point is just this. It's just that it wasn't paid. And just imagine this, just real quick. You're working in an insurance company, and I'm an attorney. And I pick up the phone and I say, hey, Caleb, listen, that roof, we got an estimate from the roofer, and it's $4,000 more than yours, than the carrier. You think you could get that $4,000 extra and we could just get this settled? And you say, no.
Makes sense.
A lot of times, you say yes, and you work it out, and you get a settlement, and you move on. A lot of times that happens. So when they say that there's all these lawsuits, and you think in your mind, we're going before a judge and we're doing all this, no, they're not that many. It's just that you hired a professional negotiator that has some tools to get them to answer. That's all that's happening. But so a little bit of a misnomer. If you looked at the actual number of lawsuits that go to court, you see the difference?
It does. So sounds like it.
It's a misnomer. Yeah. If you were doing a Mothers Against Drunk Driving, if you got hit by a drunk driver, right, and they sent that drunk driver to jail for hitting you, they would vilify the drunk driver. If the drunk driver ran into a clump of trees because he's hammered and kills himself, they'll call that an alcohol-caused fatality and put it in their statistics. More often than not.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Spot on with that.
Alcoholics off themselves by themselves in cars. But it doesn't. The statistics aren't as good.
They're not killing other people. Right? They're killing themselves.
So all they're doing is look. You just got to look at the actual statistics. They're playing a game because it works. I can say you have 90% of the litigation in the country. If I can say that to you, then I can get a bunch of people to go, "Oh, that's wrong. That can't be." And
in that sense, they're playing the blame game, as in, this is why your costs are so high. And really, it has nothing to do with any of that. It's like an illusion. Over here to the side, look at this shiny light.
Just to give you an idea, my insurance company that I use at my own home, their cost of servicing claims did not go up by 3 times. Didn't. They just got free run. They just got free run of it. So now they can charge me anything they want. Look, if I don't hire them to do my insurance, if they get half the people that do insurance with them as did before, they have lower risk and they make more money. Think about it. I don't care how you do it. It's societal engineering. That's what it is. It's got to be. It's got to be. But I'm excited about the experiment.
Yeah. No, I think you're
like I told you, there's always going to be, we say in our business that we serve Mother Nature and stupidity, and they're always in good supply. Okay. We're never going to have a stop to insurance claims. They're going to keep rolling because people are continuing to do stupid things. Every Thanksgiving, they're going to burn their house down. It's going to be the same thing as it always is. Every time it gets warm cold in the Northeast, they're going to start up their furnace and they're going to burn their house down. It's going to happen. Meth heads are going to blow up houses. Yep, it's going to happen. Okay. And you're always going to have to deal with it one way or the other. And it's not stopping. The game's not going to stop. The insurance industry is not going to stop. What is going to happen is a lot of those things that happen in Florida are going to go to appraisal, to be settled in appraisal as opposed to being settled in litigation. They've basically killed the litigator in large part. But just remember, they tried to kill bad faith, but they failed because they forgot that there was other laws that ruled that, and they're constitutional things. So they're still going to run bad faith. Okay. And they try to get out of that, but they didn't. And look, if I was them, I would try to get out of it too. I don't want to get sued all the time. But unlike them, I would just pay the claims.
No, you're absolutely right.
I would just pay the
claims. That seems a lot cheaper.
Pay them now. And if they want to go to an attorney, just tell them to call you and you'll go sit down and have coffee with them and say, what's the problem? It's just not that hard because, the average person isn't trying to game the system. Nobody
they're just trying to get paid, just going about their way. That's it.
It just gets visited on them. And it's like being invited to a party where you're bringing all the food and you didn't want to go to the party and you didn't volunteer for this, but you still have to do it. It is just that you're going to the show whether you like it or not. End of story. Yeah.
I like your analogy.
Yeah.
You got to go to this party. You're going to have to bring all this food. You're like, no, I don't want to do this.
No way out of it at all.
Makes sense. Excellent. David, I think I've taken up enough of your time, but it has been a blast.
Sure, anytime, man.
I'd love to have you on again sometime in the future. Maybe you can tell me about some insurance company that just started. You never know. Right. I look forward to hearing about that. Yeah, I honestly look forward to that. But it was nice talking with you, and I look forward to having you again. Thanks, David.